And very nice meeting you all. Thank you for taking the afternoon time. I don't know whether you are just completing a full day of teaching to attend this, or just like me, have a busy day, back-to-back meeting. But really appreciate the time that you're spending to join this talk today. And I have to apologize first because I think it's because of the structure of this presentation, it won't be my normal type of teaching. I will condense everything in 30 minutes and then leave the rest of the time. Hopefully, we can have more interactive aspect of communicating regarding the TPACK framework and how to apply it in language teaching so that we have more time on that. So if you have any question, I would encourage you to maybe save towards the end. We do have dedicated Q&A sessions for that. So once I go full screen and share the PowerPoint, I won't be able to see the chat box. So please, Mag, or if you see anything that you need to stop me, just jump in and turn on the mic and talk. Thank you. So let me share my screen. Okay. Can you all see the PowerPoint sharing? Good, thank you. So we're going to spend the next 30-ish minutes to talk about TPACK, and I'm gonna explain why I think that's important for language teachers, especially for all of you who are teaching a lot of foreign languages or critical languages, less commonly taught languages in the United States in the teaching context. So thanks for the introduction. That saved us some time. I'm gonna skip that. So today we're going to cover the topic of TPACK in three aspects. So I'm going to briefly talk about what TPACK is and then unpack it through different perspectives. The major three components: the content knowledge, the pedagogical knowledge, and the technological knowledge. And then the intersections of each bubble, and we're going to explore how that connects with the language teaching. And then I'm going to spend a little time talking about technology integration, because I think that's the central theme of this STARTALK program as well. And it's also very important given the current technology trends and advancement in the AI age, right? So, and last but not least, I'm going to spend maybe a couple minutes to talk about how we can use this TPACK framework in the technology integration process when we're teaching a foreign language. So with that in mind, let's go into the details about TPACK. So how many of you have heard about TPACK before? Maybe some of you might have heard that. I know Mike did. So before we delve into the TPACK content, I just want to briefly introduce Liz, scholar and the pedagogical content knowledge that Lee Schumann has proposed. So for some of you who don't know about Lee Schumann, he's a very prestigious educational scholar, and he has been serving as a faculty member in the College of Education at Michigan State University back in the 60s to the mid-80s, I think. So right before he published and proposed this idea of pedagogical content knowledge. So I'm sorry to brag about that, but the topic today has a lot of relationship with MSU faculties and scholars that you will see later in the slides as well. But the idea about pedagogical knowledge and the importance of, not only for the teaching career, for teachers like us, whether you're teaching math, science, or foreign language. So not only we need to acquire the content knowledge, which is specific related to the subject area that you're teaching, the expertise, the things that you need to know before you face out the students. But also the idea of pedagogical content knowledge that Li Schumann proposed is emphasizing the teaching, how we can teach those content effectively in those ideas. Because I'm sure many of you have encountered the situation where some people will think, oh, you can speak French, then you can be a French teacher. You speak Chinese, you can be a Chinese teacher successfully, right? But in reality, that's not true, right? Because we all know as foreign language teachers, especially in the United States, there are a lot of things that related in addition to the content knowledge that we know, meaning the target language that we use, right? The cultural background knowledge that we possess. But in terms of instructions, in terms of methods, how to teach those content that are also important. So that is why Li Schumann's idea of proposing this pedagogical content knowledge is so important in the teaching field, because it's recognizing not everybody can be a successful teacher unless you grasp all this pedagogical knowledge in relation to your content. So here's the little definition about Li Schumann's work. But I'm not going to read the code from the slides, but as you can see, I highlighted some things in yellow. So basically, in his mind, the PCK, the pedagogical content knowledge, is actually the ways of representing and formulating the subject that make it comprehensible to others. So as teachers, I think that's the most important thing, right? We want to make our content to be comprehensible to our learners so that they can understand, they can learn, they can achieve their learning goals that we set for them, right? So keep that in mind because the TPACK model is actually based on this pedagogical content knowledge that Li Schumann proposed. So think about the pedagogical content knowledge might be very abstractive, right? It's not so easy to conceptualize what exactly are we talking about. But I find this cartoon really powerful in illustrating what does it mean to be a teacher, right? If you are thinking about everything in square and you would tailor that to all your learners, think about what happens to your learners, right? That is because you don't know the appropriate pedagogical content knowledge. You don't know how to effectively teach all these things. So building on that, I think we have I'm assuming that we all agree that pedagogical content knowledge is very important to teachers, regardless of subject areas. And then here comes the TPACK idea. So the full term is technological pedagogical content knowledge. I know it's like a tongue twister. It took me a long time to remember all this, but it's emphasizing, the intersection between pedagogy, between content knowledge, between technological knowledge together. So it's a very easy to understand if we are thinking about a one diagram that three bubbles intersect together, which I will show it later. Again, this TPACK idea is actually proposed by two educators in the educational technology field. They're very prestigious scholars as well. Mishra right now is working at Arizona State University. He's a very creative thinker. I would say that word for him. He's very enthusiastic about creativity in education. So if you know his work, he has done a lot of interesting work related to, recently, he's been publishing a lot of things regarding AI, if you are interested. So he's leading, what's it called? Institute for Future Learning in the Arizona State University as well. So Matt Koehler is my colleague here at MSU College of Education as well. And Funia also worked at MSU for a long time before he joined Arizona State. So that's why I mentioned earlier that, this is a MSU special topic. So those two scholars, they proposed the idea back in 2006 about, expanding the Lee Schumann's pedagogical content knowledge idea to include another layer, which is the technological knowledge. So I think it's very easy to understand now with the figures on the slide. It is very interesting to see different interpretations about and different adaptations about this model. It's being widely used in mostly teacher education, because a lot of teacher educators, especially those who are focusing on preparing future teachers' technological competency, digital literacy, and EdTech skills, they are using this TPACK framework a lot in terms of research, in terms of actual professional development as well. So I know from a very easy Venn diagram, that's not everything that we can cover. I'm going to go in details about each individual bubble and all the intersection parts. And then we're going to talk about the core, the TPACK, the technological pedagogical content knowledge and its relations with language teaching and educational technology integration. So hopefully with the next 10-15 minutes, we can go in details. And if you feel have any concerns or questions, please stop me. I know talking about theoretical frameworks might be really challenging after a long day. So feel free to stop me if you have any questions while we are going through this. So of course, content knowledge, I put it in the first because I think that's probably the easiest one to understand, right? So basically, this is the what, right? What we're teaching, what each teacher is teaching about in relation to the subject area, all the materials that you want the learners to know. I try to debunk this in 2 layers. One, I wanted to give some general examples so that you know in general what does it mean to teachers, regardless of their subject area. And then I want to frame that into the foreign language teaching context so that you have more direct idea about what we're talking about in terms of each bubble. Does that make sense? Okay. So for content knowledge, of course, we're talking about national standards, state standards. I'm sure, I don't know, are all of you coming from different states, or you probably are, familiar with your local state standards in terms of the subject area. In our case, it's, world language. If you're in K-12, if you're in higher education, you're probably following other types of standards, most likely ECHO, right? So there are a lot of different standards nationwide and statewide regarding this different subject matters. And then we have to follow on a lot of curriculum scopes and sequencing to talk about different topics, themes, especially if you are teaching in other subject areas like math, science, social studies. You have certain school district that has even script curriculum that you are required to teach, right? And also we want to know, I think what students already know. That's part of the content knowledge as well. So you don't want to repeat things that they already know. You want to assess them first and then teach them things that they don't know, right? And framing that content knowledge to foreign language teaching realm, we'll see there are a lot of language-specific terms that's coming up. A lot of the language acquisition theories and components of language learning, language development can be included here. So like phonology, morphology, semantics, pragmatics, a lot of different things when you are learning a language series. So those are the content knowledge that we're talking about. I think this part is relatively easy. So I'm going to skip to the pedagogical knowledge. So if the content knowledge is what, then the pedagogical knowledge is how, right? We're talking about instructional strategies and methods here. In the teaching process, in the teaching practices, what are you trying to incorporate to make sure your learners, your students are engaged in the process and be able to achieve the goals, right? the different ways in which you are using instructionally or fancy word pedagogically is the art of teaching, right? So if we are framing that into the general teaching realm career, then pedagogical knowledge can include a lot of instructional strategies that we're talking about. Making sure you have the skills to manage classroom, right? That's for a lot of K-12 teachers, that's lesson one. You have to make sure your classroom is, under your control so that you can make sure the students are on target and engaged in the learning process. And then how to create a lesson plan and how to deliver the lesson so that you can effectively realize your instructional goals. And if we are talking about pedagogical knowledge in the foreign language teaching context, then there are a lot of specific approaches that I'm sure you probably are familiar with, like task-based language teaching, right? Or project-based, PBL, right? And most familiar approach might be a communicative approach of teaching the language. That's a lot of the language teachers are adopting that approach to emphasize the importance of communication in learning a language, right? And then the TPR methods, the total physical response approach, where probably if you are dealing with younger learners, you are doing a lot of physical gestures, movement, give them a lot of other comprehensible input cues so that your learners can understand the target language, right? So there are a lot of different instructional strategies that you can use in terms of the pedagogical knowledge in the foreign language teaching context. So I think this part should be relatively easy to understand as well. Again, stop me if you have any questions. The technological knowledge, instead, I think about those three bubbles, right? We are moving from the content to pedagogy and then the technology. So right now, especially, I would argue in the current digital age, technological knowledge is like inevitable circle that you cannot avoid as teachers, regardless of your subject area. I would even argue that for language teachers like us, I think it's essentially important if you know some kind of technology tools that can facilitate your language teaching and your learners' learning. That would be giving you a lot of different effective ways to achieve your target. So this, in essence, is all the knowledge that you know about different technology tools. So first of all, I think you don't think technology as a big word that intimidates you. I would suggest that, old technologies like calculators, like blackboard, pen and pencil, that's technology, right? It's just old technology. But right now, we're mostly talking about digital technologies where you can access it through your cell phone, through mobile devices, through the internet, right? But think about the advancement of technology. It's always been a tool to facilitate teaching and learning. It's never the dominant piece or most important one without teachers who can achieve all these goals. So in my opinion, although I'm a fan of using a lot of technology tools, in my opinion, I don't think AI will replace teachers. At least for the next 10 years, it won't. But I would further argue that AI will probably replace teachers who don't know them, who can now effectively use them. So that's something to keep in mind. Same as technology, I would suggest that, as a language teacher, it would be very beneficial to know more about the educational technology tools, their benefits, their limitations, so that you can incorporate them into your teaching effectively. Here, if we are talking about, general context of technological knowledge for all the teachers, then I'm sure a lot of you are very familiar with the Google Suite, like all the Google educational products that you're using, whether it's Google Classroom, Google Doc, Google Sheets, Google Slides, right? All of these products, you have been using it on a probably daily basis, right? You know what their function is, what their limitations are, and you know how to use them and incorporate them into your teaching practices. But for foreign language teaching, I think technological knowledge may refer to a lot of specific things, like particularly there are a lot of cell phone-based language learning apps, right? So Duolingo is very popular. There's a lot of others that are cross platforms that you can install apps as well as using different devices. And I'm sure you are familiar with a lot of like Quizlet, Kahoot game-based platform that facilitated learning, especially language learning. I think a lot of the language teachers are successfully using them as well. So I think I will share the slides with you all, so you don't have to take any notes per se. So I'm going to skip some of the examples here. I think a lot of them you are very familiar with already. Because of the time, I need to talk about quickly, I think. And then think about the picture that I showed earlier about the TPACK, right? There are three bubbles intersect with each other. And we talk about content knowledge, pedagogical knowledge, and technological knowledge. And then there are three parts that, each of the two pairs, they will overlap together. So first, I want to introduce the pedagogical content knowledge piece. This part is probably a little tricky because when you think about the content knowledge in the context of foreign language teaching and the pedagogical knowledge about the foreign language teaching, we think a lot about different strategies, different methods of teaching certain languages, right? Based on what kind of language you are teaching, you might endorse different methods. But here, I want to emphasize that pedagogical content knowledge is, in our foreign language teaching context, is mostly targeting on a lot of the theories and standards and practices that's already been identified successful in the field, like the ACFO 5Cs, I'm sure, 3 modes of communication. Those are very widely accepted in foreign language teaching in the US. And using target language to teach is another aspect, and also incorporating authentic materials. Although I might have a little bit different idea about this, but this is not a topic for today, but I want to put it out there. And also in terms of assessment, a lot of the performance-based assessment are advocated. So all these knowledges are related to the teaching and learning process in relation to your instruction. So when you think about the connection between pedagogy and content, when those two bubbles intersect, so you have to make sure you are integrating those standards, those methods, those content knowledge together so that you can effectively achieve your goal, right? And then we have another two bubble, the technological content knowledge. Those technological knowledge and the content knowledge, when they intercept together, we're thinking about what kind of educational technology tools are best to represent those content. For example, if we are trying to teach vocabulary, I'm sure regardless of what language you are teaching, you have to teach some vocabulary, right? If you are teaching that, think about what kind of technology tools you might want to use to best represent the content of vocabulary or even grammar rules that you want to introduce. So there are a lot of different things that you can utilize, but what is the best to represent those content? You probably want to choose Quizlet because the flashcard function, right? The gaming type of activity can engage students, can motivate students, a lot of self-paced learning, right? And there are other types of technology tools that are available that you can utilize when to best represent your content of the language component that you're going to teach. So, as I listed on the slides, for all of the generative AI tools we're currently using, the speech recognition tools that making things available to you in a different modality. That's a lot of the things that you can think about. And the technological pedagogical knowledge part, I would say this is probably the most difficult one to conceptualize. If you are still thinking about the bubble intersections, so think about those things, whether we are trying to focus on technology tools, affordances and challenges, benefits and limitations, in other words, or in connection with the desired instructional strategies. So we have to think about instructional methods and the affordances and the benefits of the specific technology tools to connect them together so that you can make sure your technology integration is effective, right? We don't want to introduce any type of educational technology tool that just for the sake of using it. I saw a lot of teachers actually when doing PD or doing teacher observations, I saw a lot of teachers are just using Kahoot for fun. While the classroom is really, energetic because every students are engaged in the game, but the content. Think about your language teaching goals, your objective of teaching those learners, what specific language you're using. Then you have to realize that sometimes it's not aligned. The technology tools we selected and the instructional method, they don't match, so that the learning outcomes are not desired. So think about that in terms of at least a lot of different tools that where you're pretty much very familiar with by now. So as large as a platform like learning management system, many of you probably teach online courses. You need to provide a lot of content in a learning management system. In terms of the technological pedagogical knowledge, you have to think about how your instructional methods are interacting with those technology tools that you are deciding as well. So now we try to go through each bubble and the intersection one by one. I hope that gives you a brief idea about the entire framework. So let's maybe summarize a little bit. So again, when we talk about the pedagogical knowledge, we're talking about a lot of teaching methods, instructional strategy, right? When we talk about the technological knowledge, we're talking a lot about the digital tools, the resources. In the field right now, there's computer-assisted language learning, technology assisted language learning or mobile assisted language learning. There are a lot of different focused areas doing research, focusing on different technology tools. And we also talk about content knowledge, where it's all language. Oh, sorry. So now in the core of the TPACK model, which is the technological pedagogical content knowledge, again, this is at the heart of the TPACK framework. This is the intersection of all three components interacting with each other. And the purpose, as you can see from the picture, is to try to balance all these three areas when you are thinking about educational technology integration in our cases, foreign language teaching, right? We have to think from the content perspective, from the instructional perspective, as well as the technology perspective to make it as a balanced approach when you are designing your own teaching lessons. Besides this, you are probably wondering about the dotted circle outside of the TPACK framework. So I want to emphasize a little bit about this context as well, because originally back in the early days when TPACK was just proposed, a lot of the critiques on TPACK framework is actually lacking the consideration of other contextual factors. Because when teachers are trying to utilize all this knowledge together to design a lesson to teach in a certain setting, we have to consider a lot of contextual factors like the teacher's beliefs about using certain technology, teachers' attitudes towards this, instructional approaches, a lot of the resources available, the lack of teacher training, prior experiences. How do their students vary about different age, different learning styles? So all these different contextual factors are taken into place as well as the big circle when you are thinking about technology integration using the TPACK framework as well. So since we're talking about, I hope the very brief explanation about TPACK can give you some general idea about this framework and what is emphasizing the three different areas, domains of knowledge. And then let's spend a few minutes to talk about technology integration. The first thing I want to raise is the idea of digital literacy, or in other contexts, you might heard different terms like digital competencies, digital citizenship. There are a lot of like familiar terms, information communication technology, ICT, right? So there are a lot of different scholars arguing on the importance of preparing our future learners and teachers as well for digital literacy. So it's basically the ability to use digital resources and software and devices, right, to produce content, to participate in this digital communities. So as you may probably have the experiences, I have two daughters. My older one is high school senior now. So I think most of their days are starting with digital devices and ending with digital devices as well. So that alone says something. So if you think about, I don't know how old you all are, but I still remember the first iPhone. That's back in 2005, right? When they first showed up. Think about how excited we were, and now like almost 20 years passed, how things developed and how technology advanced in terms of changing people's lives and the way of teaching and learning as well. So I want to raise the importance of that idea. And I also want to talk a little bit about standards, because there are a lot of existing technology standards for language teaching as well. So if you are not familiar with ACFO on their website, they published a position statement 2017, I think. Here's a directed quote from their website, which is emphasizing the technology, the role of technology in language teachers' perspective, right? And it also has the World Readiness Standards that's published by ACFO, that's for learners, right? But they also emphasize the importance of technology in that World Readiness Standards as well. And there's a nonprofit organization called International Society for Technology and Education. So ISTE, they publish a lot of different standards focusing on students, educators, education leaders, and coaches. So if you're interested, I put a link in the text in the slides as well. So you can go and explore different standards. So this is just to give you another aspect, because I'm in the field of teacher education. So there are a lot of standards actually focusing on the importance of technology, preparing pre-service teachers or in-service teachers about technology skills and digital literacy skills as well. So, like for example, the CAPE, the Council for Accreditation of Educator Preparation Standards that I listed in the slides, they asked all the teacher prep programs to embed all this technology training or preparation for future teachers as well. So just to give you some idea about what educational technology standards means in terms of language teaching and language teacher education. So here's a very brief summary, because I recently saw this article. It's a critical review of the TPACK framework in language teaching. So what these authors did is they reviewed all the previous empirical studies. They found 51 studies actually starting from 2011 to 2019, because this they first published, I think, during the pandemic, late 2020 or early 2021, but finally printed in 2022. So what they found is really interesting. I highlighted some major findings there too. So in terms of using TPACK framework in language education, whether it's language teaching or language teacher education, the predominant empirical studies were conducted in Asia and Middle East. So I remember it's probably like 70% of the studies, like 35 studies were actually conducted in Asia and Middle East. And a lot of those studies are actually focusing on English as the second language. So ESO or English as foreign language teaching context. So it's mainly teaching English. And a lot of them are actually doing in-service teachers and free-service teachers as well. So what they find in terms of using TPACK is they are, given the time, I think I probably don't have time to go into details, but I will list it here so there's actual research, a lot of research on TPACK, but relatively few research on TPACK in language education. So if you are interested in that regard, please do. So lastly, I want to give you maybe a concrete example, because we're talking about a theoretical framework. I know it's going to be really hard to understand and conceptualize, but imagine now we are talking about using TPACK in your language teaching when you are thinking about integrating technology tools, right? So I'm going to ask you to go with me. Imagine you are a high school teacher, Chinese teacher, because I only know Chinese. I'm sorry. I know a little bit of Spanish and other Japanese as well, but it's just very little. So I use a very typical scenario where we teach Chinese New Year, right? Because it's upcoming in January. So think about that. What am I going to, as a foreign language teacher, if we are trying to apply the TPACK framework in this setting, I'm teaching high school students. Mostly, I would say maybe proficiency level as a novice mid to novice high-ish, right? So if we're using ECHO proficiency guideline. So we definitely wanted to set up our learning goals first. We want to set up the language learning goal, the content, the cultural knowledge learning goals as well. And then this is related to the CK part, right? We're talking about specific vocabulary. We want students to be able to say, Happy New Year in Chinese, right? We want students to know the importance of the cultural significance of this Chinese New Year celebration. And then in terms of pedagogical knowledge, PK, where we can design a lot of different things. Here, I'm just giving you an example of maybe we're using task-based learning, right? We design a language learning task. We ask the students, after they learn a little bit about the Chinese New Year vocabulary and culture background, we ask them to design a plan for a celebration, right? What kind of customs that you use in those Chinese New Years. We usually give red envelopes to each other, right? With money in it. So there are a lot of different small things that you can design for a small task-based learning here. And then in terms of technology, we can use a lot of different things, like a lot of the museum has virtual tours now that can give you a very authentic feeling about immersing into the cultural events like Chinese New Year. And in terms of the vocabulary teaching, we can use a lot of different tools like Quizlet to give them quick ideas and effective learning guides in this context. So in this brief example, I'm trying to demonstrate here is when we are thinking about teaching a specific age group in a foreign language setting, right? We're thinking about content, pedagogy, and technology together. So aligning with our learning objectives as well. So maybe I'll leave this as a homework for you. You can try to apply the TPACK framework and design an activity with technology integration on your own language that you're going to teach. And for the affordances and challenges, I don't think I will have time to talk about today, but it's just basically giving you some ideas about what the current field, especially in this context of US, people are feeling about how educational technology are changing the ways of teaching and learning already. So I guess I've used up my 30 minutes. So, oh, sorry, just maybe 20 seconds. So some key takeaways that I want to emphasize before the end, before the question and answer. So using the TPACK, I think it's important to think about this technology and pedagogy and content, language content in our context together. So as we see from the three bubbles, the interactions, the interceptions of each two bubble means something. So think about those connecting areas and also the context, the dotted circle in the big area as well. And I would suggest that, keep yourself updated with new technologies if you have time, if you're interested, because you have to know it. You have to personally use it before you can integrate it into your teaching, right? So as well as the pedagogical and content knowledge as well. You need to be on top of the new teaching approaches, instructional strategies, and the language that people are using are changing, are updating too, right? So you have to constantly update yourself in terms of that regard. And then I think, yep, we're talking about specific content and the specific context as well as a whole. When you are thinking about integrating technology effectively, there are a lot of things to consider. But hopefully using this TPACK framework can give you a jump start. At least you can think about the whole teaching and learning process with technology built in from the three different bubbles together. So with that, I think I'm going to turn to the participants.
All right, everyone, please join me in thanking Professor Lee for this talk. So we really appreciate it. We are at the end of the 45-minute session, so I'm going to stop recording.